Afternoon. On behalf of the family, I just want to express their appreciation for being here today. Thank you for wearing the masks. I know we're all tired of that, and it adds grief to grief, and I'm sorry to the family that they've have to go through this during this time. We're going to have family members speak during our celebration, and when you come up and speak, just like I am, feel free to remove your mask and talk openly to the crowd. Again, thank you for the family. We're live streaming. Several people have joined us online. So just, again, thanks for being here.
Good afternoon. James M. Bays, 62, of Springfield, passed away Friday, July 17th, 2020, in his residence. He was born December 18th, 1957, in Columbus, Ohio, the son of Alger and Barbara Castle Bays. James was a 1976 graduate of Northeastern High School and graduated from Clark State Community College and the University of Cincinnati. He was a systems analyst for electronic data systems, EDS, and computer systems engineering. His survivors include his son Jeremy and Michaela LaValle, and daughter Samantha Elliott, sister Nona Hackley, nephews Jim and Kelly Bays, and Brian and Jennifer Collins, nieces Carla Neer, Elise Adkins, and Stacy Bays. James is preceded in death by his parents and siblings Mark Bays and Belinda Neer. Hi, I'm Brian Collins, in case you didn't know me. Concerning Uncle Jim. My Uncle Jim grew up in East Clark County, the same area that I now live with my family. He attended Plattsburgh Elementary School, and he used to tell me that he loved being chosen to put the flag up every morning. It was an honor for him. He just loved it. Plattsburgh School is right down the road from my house, so I'm reminded of that all the time. He also attended South Vienna Middle School and Northeastern High School. He helped his family build a house on Buena Vista Road in that time frame, some time in there. I'm not sure what year that was. As a young boy, he loved working with his hands, playing guitar, being outside. He also played high school football. And in 1974, he was in a car accident on his way to church with his father, sister, and cousin. And Jim broke his neck, which paralyzed him from the rest of his life. And the life of a quadriplegic is in no way easy. But Jim made the most of it. He finished high school. He went to Clark State, UC. Then he married his high school sweetheart. Got a great job at Penaflex and then EDS. He wrote speeches for the former county commissioner, Roger Tackett. His first marriage ultimately didn't last, and I remember that and how rough it was for him. And I stayed with him a lot then. Remembering, he would take business trips for EDS, go to Detroit, and be gone for like a weekend at least. And he'd always tell me he was staying in the GM building because EDS was working through GM, however that works. And then way later down the road, I had a business conference in Detroit at the GM building. So that was exciting for me to come back and say, I got to stay there. It was awesome. You were right. I have cars hanging in the middle of the room, of the building. Who does that? But while he was on the trips, he'd always buy something cool and bring it back. Nieces and nephews, I know. I was really into basketball, and my favorite player was Grant Hill, and he played for the Detroit Pistons. And he came back with a pair of Grant Hill shoes for me that I couldn't find or afford, but he had the black ones. Nobody had the black ones. So he just always had this wave. That's just how he was. He knew if he saw something, he knew you wanted it, or he knew something that he thought you might like, he'd just buy it. And you'd say, "You don't have to do that, Jim." He said, "I know. I wanted to." It's Jim. Uncle Jim became a sort of celebrity to my friends. He would even bring friends with me to stay over at his house, or his condo. My friends and I have even house sit for him. My wife and I have house sit for him. Jim loved to play pool before the accident, and his sister, my mom, Nona, made a strap because he couldn't use his fingers, and he could hold the pool cue and play pool. So he took me to Forest Lake or any pool hall that we could go to. We'd learn how to play pool and just run it. We'd stay at Forest Lake, close the place down, then go to Meyer, this big old Ford Econoline van. I still remember the smell of the upholstery sitting in the captain's chairs, and his license plate number, DA21E. Looks like Daisy. And they lived in the condo up the hill past the Springfield Mall, Green Lawn Village, Flowerdale Drive. I just drove past there with my girls 2 weeks ago for fun, I guess. And that's where he introduced me to the Beatles, Jimi Hendrix, Eric Clapton, and Led Zeppelin. That's where he taught me how to play guitar. It's not bad for a dude who couldn't use his fingers. There were some amazing times in that condo, great memories. All the Frisbees in the garage, the old IBM in the den, the spice rack. Justin and I snuck our first beer out of that refrigerator. It was Busch Light. Jim found out, didn't tell my mom or Justin's parents. It was just cool. My Uncle Jim was one of those people that would call you, have a conversation, hang up the phone, and then call you right back because he forgot to talk to you about what he actually called you for in the first place. It was like every time. You could pretty much count on it. You hang up and just wait. You count it down. He was also very particular about his clothes. He hated it when his collar wasn't flat. His shirt had to be pulled down enough, but not too much. And don't get me started on the inseam. He liked more jelly on his peanut butter, or more jelly than peanut butter on his PB&Js. I made that mistake once. And he always asked for the heel and the piece next to it when it came to making him a sandwich. I'm pretty sure he perfected, if not inventing, pointing with his thumbs and taking change. That was always just real fun to see other people's faces when they're going to hand him change and he'd do that. And they're oh, man. I cracked myself up, sorry. I'm pretty sure, let's see, I already did that. Let's see. The kids loved Jim, all the kids. He would give them rides on his wheelchair. Some kids would sit on his foot pedals. He was always happy to see you when you came by or when he saw you. Visits always lasted longer than intended. And he often showed up late to events, even his own birthday dinners. Jim and I had a friend named Bill, lived down the road for me when I was growing up. Bill was retired and loved to play pool. He had a pool table in his garage. He and Jim became pretty good friends, and we played pool in his garage quite a bit. Bill really, really did love Jim. So much so that when Bill died, he left Jim his pool table. Jim would eventually get remarried to a nurse that helped him. Her name was Christy. Jim lived with her and their 2 stepchildren, Samantha and Jeremy, on Villa Road for I don't know how long. There's another house filled with great memories. Playing pool in the basement. Justin's dad and I built the deck in the backyard. I was his home health aide for a few years. He took my brother and I to Disney World with him and his family one summer. Jim's health had gotten to the point where he couldn't actually go into work anymore. He still loved staying up with technology. He was a frequent shopper at Best Buy, the Dollar Tree, and Bed Bath & Beyond. Or as he and my grandpa would like to say, Bed Bath and Breakfast. That was an Alger thing. I'm not sure what it was. Jim moved into his condo in Northridge after his second marriage ended. I was once again fortunate enough to be his home health aide for a while before moving on and leaving his care in the more than capable hands of my baby brother. His name is Jim. We all call him Bub. It's less confusing that way. Bub was Jim's aide for 12 years and was with him until the end. And Jim was very thankful to have Bub. He always preferred having family help him. He knew they could use the money, and there's a big difference in care between someone who's there just for the paycheck and someone who's there and actually cares for you. And we truly cared for Jim. Losing someone you love is like losing a limb. You know it should be there because it's always been there. And sometimes you can even feel it. But ultimately, reality sets in and you realize you will never be whole again. And part of you is missing. Jim was always a man of God. He loved his life. He lived his life like he thought God would want it. So at this time, I'd like to ask my oldest friend, Justin Coster, to come up. He'd like to say a few words and a prayer. Justin?
Father, we all meet here today in memory of Jim. Even though our hearts are broken, we ask that you'd bless us and heal our hearts. Help us to deal with the pain and the loss that we are experiencing. But in addition, bless us and help us to remember the good times, the memories, and the amazing relationships that we had with Jim. Help us throughout the day as we continue on after this service, and to remember him and remember you in all that we do. In Jesus' name, amen. As Brian already said, my name is Justin. Excuse me, I'm getting a little teary already. I'm not a great speaker by any means, so I apologize up front if I seem a little awkward, but I know what I'm wearing isn't traditional clothing you would wear to a service like this. This is my last joke to Jim, a big fat guy in a pink shirt with lizards all over it, so I hope he's laughing right now. Got a few notes here. I didn't write anything as eloquent as Brian did, but I'll begin with how I met Brian and how I came to know the family. Brian and I met in middle school. His family moved to my school district, and I remember the first day he walked into the classroom, I thought, who is this dorky, skinny guy with these big old glasses? And as he was walking past me to go to his desk, he was saying, who is that dorky, fat guy sitting right there? So we ended up becoming dorky friends after that. And that was 25 years ago, and still friends to today. But that's how we met. And one day at school, Brian said, hey, do you want to go to Kings Island with me? I said, sure, let me ask my mom. So I went home and asked my parents, and they were okay with it. Because they had already met Nona, his mom, so they said, yeah, you can go with them, it's fine. And the way that I got to go with him was Uncle Jim, which I call him, so you'll probably hear me calling him Uncle Jim the whole time. Uncle Jim had an extra ticket to go to Kings Island, and he offered it to Brian to bring a friend. So that was a big experience for me because I'd never been to an amusement park at all. So it was huge for me just to go have fun, but little did I know I'd get to meet one of the greatest men I'd ever met in my life. That day is, I'll always remember it because I met Jim, because he took me in like I was family. I was there not with just Brian and Jim, but all the other nieces and I don't even remember all who went, but he treated me just like I was one of them, like I was family. He offered any toy, anything I wanted to eat that was in any of the stores to me, and I felt kind of awkward. I said, man, I'm not allowed to do this even with my own parents, you know. So, but it was awesome. He gave to me as if he'd known me forever. That will always have a major impact on my life. And as I said earlier, Brian and I remained friends for years. Even after he moved out of the school district, we kept in touch by phone. And he would call me up and say, hey, do you want to spend the night at Uncle Jim's? Heck yeah, definitely, let's go to Jim's. And Jim was always happy to have me over. And he would introduce us to his record collection. As Brian already mentioned a few things, I remember Led Zeppelin, Jimi Hendrix, Janis Joplin, John Lennon, all the classics, you know, from 60s, 70s. That's where I got my, my base in learning music and rock and roll. He was a big influence on that. He also allowed us to use his instruments. Jim had a great instrument collection. He had a cello-style bass, a really cool psychedelic blue bass. He had lap steel, a couple other guitars, and a really big amp. And when you're a teenager, a really big amp is cool. Bigger and louder. So Jim would have us over. He would order pizza. I wouldn't even ask for it. You know, I'd go already eat dinner. He'd go, no, I'm going to order pizza for you guys. I said, you don't have to. And he'd say, but I want to. Just as Brian said, every time. So, and that's where I was introduced to pineapple on pizza. And that was a life changer right there. Brian likes to take credit for that. But Jim would allow us to stay as long as we wanted. Sometimes 2 days in a row, I would stay there as long as my parents knew where I was. Because I realize now what Jim was doing when he had us to his condo in his home. He was allowing wild teenage boys to stay there because he cared about their safety. We could have been out on the streets doing anything at that age, 14, 15, 16. But Jim allowed us to come to his house, get crazy and wild in the basement and play loud music on his instruments. And I remember writing a song on a pizza box, writing all the lyrics in the middle of the night. But not only was he caring for us, he was giving us a safe place to stay. Because he cared enough about us to keep us safe so that we weren't making poor choices. And later on, he began to go to the same church that I went to, and the whole family did. And on Sundays after church, I vividly remember after shaking hands, Brian and I would go out in the parking lot and say, let's go eat Chinese. So we'd all go eat Chinese, and Uncle Jim would go with us, and we'd just have fun, laughing, joking. over a big Chinese dinner, and occasionally Jim would pay for everyone without us knowing. The classic Jim move, as I called it. He just loved doing that. I've got a lot of really good memories of Jim. I think most of all, what I will remember is that he was a great mentor. He was just a great man in general, but a great mentor in the sense that he was a good listener. He would listen to anything you had to say. If we had something going on in our lives, we'd go to Jim with it, good or bad. And he would freely give advice, even if you didn't ask for it. But it was not in a sense that he knew better than you or wanted to control you. But he gave you little hints of wisdom and advice to where you could accept them comfortably and not feel like he was pushing his ideas on you. And he always made me think when I spoke to him. A very intelligent, wise man. He knew how to manipulate you to get you to think through your own situations, and I really do appreciate that about him. I always appreciate the fact that he treated me as family. The first day he met me, he didn't know me from anyone. I was just a chubby little kid that Brian invited to Kings Island. But I've been adopted into the family as one of the rest. And Nona, you too. You've always treated me like a son. About a month ago, I randomly stopped at a yard sale with my family, and we really didn't see anything. Started walking back to the car, and I saw a couple of books laying on the ground. So me, I'm a book nerd. I had to look and see what they were, and it was a couple of hymnals, and I hadn't seen hymnals in years. And I've been saying for a long time, I'd love to have a hymnal, just because those old songs, they bring back my childhood and good memories. So I picked them up, $1 a piece. I was excited. Hey, good deal. So I took them home and I flipped through it and said, oh man, I forgot about this song. And oh, I remember this. And I hummed a couple and sang a few. And then I put the hymnals on my desk and I left them there. And then I think it was 2 weeks ago, over the weekend, my family, we went to an amusement park in Indiana for just a little weekend getaway. And it's called Holiday World. Every part of the park is themed differently by a holiday. So you walk in, and it's Christmas land, and they're playing Christmas music. And then you go to 4th of July land, and you're here Lee Greenwood. And then you go to Halloween land, and they're doing spooky songs. And I went through Thanksgiving land and watching all the weird turkeys around me and stuff, and noticed the music they were playing was a banjo. And I was like, oh, they're playing some good old bluegrass. And as I listened closely, I recognized the tunes, and they were old gospel songs and old hymns. And I said, this is very strange that I'm hearing a hymn at an amusement park. Not very amusement-y, I guess, if that's a word. So I had the song that I heard that day was Old Rugged Cross, and it got stuck in my head. In fact, I've had it stuck in my head since then. And last night I was just, I picked up one of my hymnals, and this is one of the ones I got at the yard sale for $1, heck of a deal. And I just randomly flipped it open, and I came to page 194, the song Behold the Lamb. And that was another song. I said, oh, I remember that from my childhood. That's a good song. And I hummed it and sang it, and I flipped the page. What is it? The Old Rugged Cross, the song that had been stuck in my head for 2 weeks. And when it got stuck in my head, I was at an amusement park, which really brought to mind the first time I met Uncle Jim. And so I felt compelled that I need to at least sing a couple lines of this song, because I think Jim would appreciate it. Excuse me, I have a dry throat. Not much of a singer, but I feel that this is important. On a hill far away stood an old rugged cross, the emblem of suffering and shame. And I love that old cross, where the dearest and best for a world of lost sinners was slain. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. To the old rugged cross I will ever be true, its shame and reproach gladly bear. Then he'll call me someday to my home far away, where his glory forever I'll share. So I'll cherish the old rugged cross till my trophies at last I lay down. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. I will cling to the old rugged cross and exchange it someday for a crown. And the Bible says in 2 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 8 in the New King James Version, we are confident, yes, well pleased rather to be absent from the body and to be present with the Lord. And I feel that Jim is absent from this body now and present with the Lord in his new body. He exchanged this broken body on this earth for a new body. He exchanged the rugged cross for a crown. Until we meet again, Jim.
Thanks, man. I know you love that. And I'm pretty sure you said you were not much of a singer. And I'm going to have to call you out on that. Before I go through the rest of my spiel here, I want to ask if anyone wants to come up and say a few words or share a memory. You don't have to, but you're welcome to. You don't have to wear the mask while you're up here, so. You're a hard act to follow, Justin. Okay. Kind of like Justin said, Jim had a major role in my life and on how, pretty much how, teaching me how to be a man and teaching me to be the man I am today and the father and the husband that I am today. Now, on top of things that I've already mentioned, he taught me how to be a gentleman, how to treat a lady, how to give people the benefit of the doubt, but also not take crap from anybody. He taught me about self-worth and about giving back. Jim enjoyed spending time with family, especially the grandkids and his great nieces and nephews. He loved going to the movies. He used to play video games. He had a PS1. He was amazing with the Crash Bandicoot. He really enjoyed reading a good book. He enjoyed Star Wars, Star Trek, comic book movies, but most importantly, Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit. Pretty much anything that Tolkien did. If you're familiar with J.R.R. Tolkien, that was his favorite. Sherlock Holmes. That's something else. Jim's birthday is the day after mine. So that was how we would celebrate. We'd celebrate together. We'd go out on mine or his birthday, mostly mine because that's how he would want to do it. And Lord of the Rings movies and the Hobbit movies, they came out right around our birthdays. So that's how we would celebrate. We'd go to the movies together and watch his favorite movies, which became some of my favorite movies. And Jim used to tell me before I had read the books or seen the movies about the stories of the Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings and how there was a Hobbit. His name was Bilbo. He had a nephew. His name was Frodo. And automatically took that into consideration with our relationship. Thought that that was pretty cool. So I have to read the books, right? There's a direct connection. And that was like what we did. We had our own little adventures. We would go and play pool. We were our little hobbits running around town. And today I have to say farewell to my uncle. And unlike Frodo, I cannot follow him into the west and beyond the sea to the Grey Havens. I know Jim's in heaven now, catching up with his brother Mark, his sister Belinda, his mother, his father, his grandparents, and everyone who's passed before him. I know that Grandma Bays is probably the first person he went to because he loved her. He's walking around pain-free, playing guitar, putting in a good word with us, putting in a good word for us with Jesus, because we need it. I need it. I can't speak for you. I can imagine playing pool with Bill and with Mark Neer, just having a great time. And I will leave you now with a quote from the Fellowship of the Ring, which is the first book in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I wish it had not have happened in my time, said Frodo. So do I, said Gandalf. And so do all who live to see such times. But that is not for them to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to us. I wish Jim didn't have to go. But I know that's not for me to decide. And Jim would want us to get back to our lives and make the most of the time that we were given. So long, Melonin Mithendre, which in Elvish means my friend, the Grey Wanderer.
Folks, I want to thank you for coming again, and this does conclude our time. We go ahead and invite you to go ahead and visit, and then you can leave as you wish.